Hi, everybody. It's Lee Carrer, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about how everything you do and say and don't do speaks for you, if you want it to or not. And I'm coming off hot from a conversation I just had, and I wanted to capture this while I was still a little pissed. I just had a conversation with a person who is a new board member for a company that is not getting a great press. He calls because a friend of his I recommended. He talked to me about what this company needs to do from a reputation point of view, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And our conversation started off with Lee. We got some bad press. And we need to replace the PR people because they're just bad. And it sort of put me on my back foot a little bit. And I said, well, tell me more. Tell me more about it. And I had done a little bit of research and I had a definite point of view, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. And he goes, yeah, these PR, they can't do anything. They can't tell a story. They can't do anything. And we just need really good, solid people to do this. And I had him tell me about a couple of the different stories would come out. And he just kept talking about how bad the PR staff is. Now, there are people who are not good at the art of communications, who are not good at media relations, who do not know how to talk with the media or deliver a message or a story to different media outlets so that they can carry it. Absolutely. However, a bad story about your CEO's decision to do something is not bad PR. It's a bad story, not a bad PR. I'm not sure I would go all the way down the line to there is no bad PR, there are just bad business decisions, but I'm almost there on this one. So I asked the question, I said, so this story, is it true? Did this happen? Yes. He was very combative. I said, well, if that's true, then it's not bad PR. It's a bad business decision that led to the bad story. Because the bad story, was about how people were impacted by this business decision. If I had a good PR personally, they would have killed that story. I said, not today. Maybe before, but not today they won't because I'm tracked it back. So if I look at this, I'm clicking. It looks like it started on social media. Well, you started on social media with a complaint about a relatively well-known company. And then other people get jammed on and said, yeah, that happened to me too. And then the algorithm takes it over and then it pushes it. And all of a sudden it's out of your control. So that's not bad PR. That's a bad business decision that was made. And he said, well, I don't think we can work with you then. I said, yeah, well, let me, I'm very happy to talk with you more about this, but, and we've done a lot of this work when companies have had bad stories. But in general, in my experience, we can have bad practitioners, and that usually means that a good story doesn't get out well enough. But in general, the negative stories are one of two camps. One, someone was out to do a hit job on you, and that's very few companies who do that. Or two, it's a bad business decision that had an impact that somebody picked up and ran with it, and it got traction. And that's a bad business decision. And you can usually track it back to something, a decision that was made and then how it was interpreted and then rolled with it. He did not like that answer. And I said, well, I wish you luck. And I'm very happy to talk to you again if you want to come back around or if you need a recommendation. Maybe, there are some great crisis firms that I can recommend to you who, well, I don't need a crisis firm. I need a good PR firm. I'm like, okay. He was very angry. I don't think he was not angry at me. He was angry at the situation. So I knew enough to know it wasn't angry at me. However, yeah, I'm going to go there. Not bad PR, bad business decisions. PR doesn't create the reality. Now, PR can shape what's out there and can shape a story. PR meaning the media relations part of the PR world, right? So PR is what are you going to say, who are you going to say it to, how are you going to say it, and all those things. And when are you going to do it, right? Who matters to your business and why, and how do you get to those people? That is public relations. It does not just mean media relations anymore. But if there's a bad experience, think United pulling somebody off their plane. I mean, just how many times do we have, all the things. So when someone says we need better PR, I usually say yes, and you need better business decisions that would lead to better stories to tell. And one that is just the classic, and actually It was like this whole conversation I just had just brought me back to a conversation I had probably 12 years ago. Was when Uber was melting down with Travis Kilm. And when I was in San Francisco. We were right around the corner from Uber, and it was just such a bro culture. You don't have to just Google it. You'll find it. Here's a company who had come up just by being disruptive, by being, they used to deliver puppies to offices in their cars. So that, I mean, it was just such a good story. And then all of a sudden things changed. It changed from a cultural perspective. It was all about cultural perspective. And they were getting such great positive things. But the story they were doing was bold, it was innovative, it was relentless, great story. Seriously. And then it turned. It turned to toxic culture. It turned to leadership behavior, sex in the stairwells, regulatory flights, dirty dealing with cab medallions, internal complaints. So many internal complaints. There's books about this, and wasn't just one story, right? One story would be a flash in the pan, but this was like a pattern, and that's business behavior, business decisions. And I had the conversation with several people, and Lee, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, I think you know what you should do. We have Uber has a PR problem. Nope, you have a leadership problem. And not one of those stories was about bad press release, a bad tweet, a mistimed tweet from them, a spokesperson who said the wrong thing. That PR team was working overtime. They were about decisions, behavior, and culture. And when employees spoke out about the culture, that wasn't PR, right? That was management. And when leadership was described as aggressive and dismissive, that wasn't messaging, that was behavior. When the company kept clashing with regulators, that wasn't communications, that was strategy. PR didn't create those stories. The PR team was left holding the bag and the microphone when those happened. They had to respond to them. There is no response if the management and the decisions and the strategy doesn't line up with a sorry. And of course, that didn't stay forever, right? They did get rid of Travis. They had to dislodge him from there. There was changing in the board. And then Dara, I can never say his last name, Korshwani, I think, stepping as CEO. And I think he said it on the first day, this is going to be a long road, but we're here for the long haul. And he stepped in as CEO, and things started to change. His leadership started to change things. Decisions started to be more strategic, they are a fierce competitor. I'm not saying they're not a fierce competitor, but they have better business decisions and better strategy now and better behavior, and they don't tolerate sexist behavior. I mean, all the things. So the narrative started to change. It took a while, right? But it didn't change because of better press releases. It changed because of better business. It started with decisions. It started with leadership. And that starts at the top. Instead of combative, it was accountable. Instead of we're right on everything, it became we have to work on that. That is a huge shift. Now, it's easy to do the shift when you have a new person delivering that message because it wasn't the person who made the problem, who was fixing the problem. It was an entirely new leadership team. But, he, as the new person, Dara, publicly acknowledged the issues, reset the culture expectations, brought in new people, worked to repair the relationships with regulators all over the world. I mean, it's a big job. And he didn't do it quietly, and he didn't do it buried out. He did it out loud. All along the way, they weren't trying to tell a different story. They were working on the business. Before, they had which is very typical in Silicon Valley, win at all costs mindset. When you're looking for money, the race for I lived there, did that whole thing for 25 years, breathed it. I get it. They were not alone, right? They're just the best example. And instead of the win at all costs mindset, in the lost leader mindset, it turned into a sustainable business growth mindset, operational discipline mindset. It's not as sexy. It's not dogs getting delivered in cars, right? But it's a lot more stable. And from a publicly traded company, that's what they need. The story changed because the behavior changed and the decisions changed. The story didn't change because someone made something up and covered up the truth. That's not what happened. PR didn't fix Uber's reputation. Uber fixed PR. Uber fixed Uber's reputation. And then PR helped tell the story. And they've done a really good job of it. But in my opinion, it hasn't been over the top, right? It's all been in line. They've done something. They said they were going to do something. They've done something. They did the press around it. We said we were going to do it. We did it. We over delivered and on to the next kind of thing. When I hear we need a reputation campaign, always start with what do we want to be known for? And they tell me, and I say, what are you known for now? And then my job is to identify how big is the gap? What are you known for now to what do you want to be known for? And how true or how possible is it to go from one to the other? Sometimes you have to go through zero to get to the other side. If you're not known for what you want to be known for, you're working on that path. And there is storytelling to do around that path. But let's not kid ourselves that we can say we are the greatest thing since sliced bread when we don't actually have a knife, right? So reputation is a lagging indicator of business. I'll say that again. Reputation is a lagging indicator of business. It shows up after the decisions, after the behaviors, after the experience. So when something goes wrong and a bad story happens, the thing where to start is the story true? Not, is it fair? Because you just don't want to get involved with the whole emotion around it. It's not fair. I mean, there's so much emotion on the end of this. Is it true or not? Right? If it's true, that's your starting point. Okay, how did we get here? Right? How did that happen? And I'll tell you a personal story. So when I was internal, I was given customer service to run because it communicates. It was quite a jump for me. And there were 400 or 500 people in that team, and we had a terrible reputation for customer service, and I didn't understand why. And I went over there, and I found out that by observing that people would pick up the phone. This is way before we had email and online chat, all that kind of stuff. That's how old I am. People were calling an 800 line or a 900 line for tips and tricks. But they would get a call, and they say, oh, can you please hold? And the person I observed put the call on hold and then went out to the food truck outside. He was gone for 10 minutes. What? He was gone for 10 minutes, brought his food back to the desk, ate his sandwich, and then picked up the phone. Well, what? So I observed that, and I observed some other things. But someone along the line said, this is okay behavior, but this doesn't happen. Right? There was no reprimand. I mean, people saw it. They were all out there at the food truck. And obviously there's data on how long the hold is. So you know that. But I just observed that one thing. And someone made the decision before me that, yeah, you can put someone on hold and go get your lunch and eat it at your desk and then pick it up again. So that was, he was gone for 10 minutes. That was probably 15, 20 minutes. That person was on hold. My gosh. So I've been there, right? I get it. So then we had to unpack it all. And I'm sure I did not do it that gracefully at first because I was like, what the hell is this? And then I calmed down and then we figured it out. But we had to retrain everybody on what was good behavior and not acceptable behavior from a team called customer service when service is in the name. Just saying. So is it fair is it true is the question. No, and fair is judgmental, right? You've got a scale of fair. But true, we had bad service. Yeah, we did. We left something on the phone while they went and got lunch. All right. But that's the starting point, right? So then the place is that you don't jump to what should we say? You should jump to what should we need to change or what should we do? What is going on? Find out what's going on first. And then you say, oh, is that good or bad? Now, it could be this. Maybe it was someone freaked out. We've all seen those videos of consumers calling and just being outrageously rude to people. But that, it's still the minority. Most people are not calling to yell at customer service. That's what gets on the internet, but that's not what's happening in true numbers. So what needs to change? And then how do you make the change visible? And frankly, quiet fixes don't rebuild trust. People need to see what changed, why it changed, and what's different now to actually do the change that will impact the experience for whoever's going to have that experience. And then you need to communicate clearly, not like PR. I'm known among people who've worked for me for like taking these like polished quotes and press releases and just throwing them out and saying, no one talks this way. So not polished, not defensive, clear. We had a problem. We're fixing it. This is how we're fixing it. And here's how we're going to be different. And here's the deal, right? The reality is you don't manage your way out of a bad story. You operate your way out of a bad story. So the next time someone says we have a PR problem, get a pause and ask, or do we have a business problem that's now visible? I'm going to choose B almost all the time because bad stories aren't about typos or a missed PR thing or telling the wrong person the wrong story. They're about execution. They're about impact. And PR can't fix what business decisions created. They can only reflect it. And you want good people reflecting it. You want top-notch communicators who know how to tell a story, who understand what's relevant, who understand all the pieces, who can build a good story that will be interesting to someone else to carry it. You need good people to do it, but PR in general can only reflect the business. The story isn't bad. It's reflecting. If the story is bad, you should be asking, what is the business saying first before someone else is carrying that water? All right, everybody. I'm calmed down now after that conversation. Thanks for listening to my cathartic talk. Until next time, I'm Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks.